Ted Cruz thought he could bully a freshman congresswoman. He thought his Ivy League degrees made him superior. He thought being senior senator gave him authority. He was wrong. When you attack someone who spent years cross-examining witnesses, defending the powerless, and fighting for civil rights, you better come with more than condescension and privilege. This decorated civil rights attorney just exposed everything about Ted Cruz that Texas voters have suspected for years: the Cancun abandonment, the January 6th treachery, the podcast grift, the cowardice, the fake populism hiding elite privilege. This is bigger than one political confrontation. This is the day Texas discovered the difference between someone who actually serves the people and someone who only serves themselves. It was a typical Thursday evening on CNN, but what happened during State of Texas, a political reckoning, would fundamentally expose the rot at the heart of Texas Republican leadership. The show's producers had set up what they thought would be a standard debate about Texas representation and state politics. On one side, Senator Ted Cruz, the senior senator from Texas, Harvard Law graduate, former Supreme Court clerk, 12 years in the Senate, presidential candidate in 2016, the embodiment of political ambition wrapped in populist rhetoric. On the other side, Representative Jasmine Crockett, the freshman congresswoman from Texas's 30th District representing Dallas, civil rights attorney, former public defender, led the historic Texas House quorum break for voting rights, rising star of the Democratic Party. Host Jake Tapper opened with questions about Texas representation and the growing divide between urban and rural areas. Cruz positioned himself as the voice of all Texans, speaking in the practiced tone politicians use when they're trying to sound folksy despite Ivy League educations. "You see, Jake," Cruz began, his voice dripping with a kind of condescension that had made him the most disliked man in the Senate. "Texas is changing, but not all change represents the will of the people. Some changes represent the coastal elite agenda being imposed on hard-working Texans." Crockett responded with the precision of someone who'd spent 15 years in courtrooms dismantling weak arguments. "Senator, I represent Dallas, the economic engine of Texas. I've represented over 5,000 Texans in court, including 400 peaceful protesters pro bono. I think I understand what Texans want." That's when Cruz made his fatal error. He smiled, that patronizing smile that colleagues from both parties had learned to despise, and leaned back in his chair with the confidence of someone who'd never been truly challenged. "Congresswoman, with all due respect," he began, and everyone watching knew nothing respectful was coming next. "Being a DEI hire doesn't qualify you to lecture senators on representing Texas. You're a freshman. You've been in Congress less than 2 years. Some of us have actually earned our positions through merit and experience." The studio fell silent. Even Jake Tapper, who'd moderated hundreds of contentious debates, looked genuinely shocked by the brazenness of the attack. But Jasmine Crockett didn't react the way Cruz expected. She didn't get angry. She didn't raise her voice. Instead, her expression shifted into something every defense attorney who'd worked with her would recognize immediately: prosecutor mode. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Her posture straightened. When she spoke, her voice carried the calm, measured authority of someone who'd cross-examined hostile witnesses 1,000 times. "Senator Cruz," she said, each word deliberate and precise. "I've represented over 5,000 Texans in court. I was a public defender before you ever cared about working-class people. I've defended families of police brutality victims. I've taken pro bono cases for peaceful protesters. I was licensed to practice law in 3 jurisdictions before you decided being a senator was a good stepping stone to the presidency." She paused, reaching into her briefcase with the same methodical precision she'd used entering evidence in trials. "Since you want to question my qualifications and my experience representing Texans," she continued, pulling out a thick folder, "let's discuss your record of representing Texas." She held up the folder so the camera could see the label, "Senator Ted Cruz, Timeline of Abandonment." "Let's start with February 20th or 21, Crockett said, her attorney voice cutting through the studio like a scalpel, "when your constituents were freezing to death in their homes, when children were dying from hypothermia, when elderly Texans were burning furniture to stay warm." Cruz tried to interrupt. His confident smile completely gone. "That's been thoroughly." "Has it though?" Crockett's voice rose just slightly, the way a prosecutor does when they're about to present the kill shot. "Because I have the timeline. I have your wife's text messages. I have the photos. And most importantly, I have the truth about what you did when Texas needed you most." The power dynamic in the studio had shifted completely. Ted Cruz, who moments ago had been patronizing a younger colleague, suddenly looked like a defendant who'd just realized the prosecutor had receipts. "You fled to Cancun," Crockett said simply. "While Texans froze to death, you went to a beach resort, and when you got caught, you lied about it." Jake Tapper leaned forward, recognizing that his show had just become the venue for something unprecedented, a civil rights attorney putting a senator on trial on live television. "Senator Cruz," Tapper interjected, "Congresswoman Crockett has made a serious accusation. Would you like to respond?" But Cruz's usual quick response failed him, because unlike the political theater he was used to, where both sides traded talking points and nothing really mattered, he was now facing someone with actual evidence, someone trained to present facts, someone who'd spent years in courtrooms where lies had consequences. And she was just getting started.